Let's talk about the new Adept Cosmetics Remastered Minka palette. I'm so excited for this. I mean, this is as remastered as you can get. Not only do we have more shades, updates to some previous shades from the original palette, as well as the packaging. This is such luxe packaging, and of course, it is magnetic. So here's the inside color story. I think this is a beautiful color story. I love the addition of some of the mattes in here. The previous Minka palette had only 2 mattes in there. I think this is a great everyday palette where you can kind of spice it up if you want here and there with some of the more colorful shades such as Joshua and Clara. There are a few different shimmer textures that I will get into during the detailed swatch portion of the video. There are a couple of overlapping shades and I will pop up some comparison swatches. So I did not only compare the shades that have the same names as the original palette, but also some similar vibe shades such as Anna. In terms of texture regarding the super sparkly shades, so Emma, Maya, and Ava, the original palette versions, while they were so punchy, very sparkly, they were definitely more on the textured side. They were a little bit harder to use. The particle size was a bit larger and they did feel just a little bit gritty. So I was very curious to see the difference between the two. And I do think that the new texture of the updated shades is for sure much more refined. They're not as gritty. They're not as flaky. They're going to be easier to use. That being said, I think you will still probably have fallout with these. If you have hooded lids and you do tend to experience fallout throughout the day, I would recommend a tacky primer with those for sure. And I did receive this palette in PR from Adept Cosmetics, so thank you so much for sending it over to me. And I do have an affiliate code which I'll put up on the screen and it will also be in the description box in case you're interested in this palette. And this palette is launching today, January 24th at 11 AM Eastern time. I didn't have time to do comparison swatches between single eyeshadows and the shades in this palette, but I will insert some comparison swatches with some shades across the different Adept palettes in comparison to this one. And I also did 2 wear tests, which I will talk about at the end of the video. So let's get into comparisons of some of the shades from other Adept palettes, detailed swatches of the shimmer shadows, 2 looks, and then I'll give you some thoughts at the end of the video. So let's get First 4 shades are Eliza, Anna, Emma, and Maya. And Emma and Maya are definitely more textured versus Anna and Eliza. I do think Maya feels just ever so slightly more gritty than Emma, but they do have the same level of sparkle, and Eliza is holographic. And these swatch like, I mean, for days. Super opaque. This one is going to stain. This one stained when I was doing just regular swatches, so it will probably leave a stain now. So Eliza is definitely a holochrome and it's quite shifty and it does feel smooth and it doesn't feel squishy. None of these feel squishy or wet or emollient. Emma and Maya do feel a little bit thicker to the touch. And Emma and Maya do kind of have like a base pigment with the sparkles kind of sitting on top. You can really see it more so up close. Joshua, Linda, and Clara, and these are all very smooth, and Linda is a beautiful holographic shifty shade. I love how vibrant and punchy Joshua and Clara are, and they swatch so nicely. Look at all that hollow in this shade. And Joshua also seems to be a multi-chrome. It's pretty shifty. I feel like I see like green, blue, almost like a lime green as well, aqua for sure, a little bit of pink and purple in the shift on an angle. There's for sure a lot of different textures. For example, Sandra is the only shade in here that is like this, where it's just super opaque, very smooth, very metallic. Here's Mia, Sandra, and Ava is one of the more textured shadows with a lot of sparkles throughout it. And Mia almost seems like it's almost got a little bit of hollow going on, maybe a little bit more subtle. And then, I mean, look at the way Sandra swatches. And Ava. Pretty opaque. And this one, again, has a base with the sparkles kind of sitting on top a little bit. But it does smooth out. I love the shade Sandra. It's got a little bit of an olive kind of tone to it. Shift, it's really, really dimensional kind of shade. I mean, the light is just really bouncing off of it. And then Mia is a really nice kind of lighter inner corner highlighting shade to top over. I definitely think I see some hollow in there. For the first look, I'm taking Elena, and I'm just gonna pump that pretty much like a wash on the outer corner, and then just kind of bring it in a little bit, and just gonna add a little bit more and then slowly feather it in. And then I'm gonna take Toya on the same brush, and I'm gonna put that into the inner crease of my lid, and then just kind of blending it all together. Picking up Ariana and putting it onto the outer corner, just kind of packing it on first, and then bringing it just a little bit underneath my lower lash line as well. And I'm just going to use that to kind of deepen out this outer corner. I'm going to go back in with Elena on this slightly fluffier brush. I'm just going to take it on the edges to feather out the Ariana shade. And that blend though, look at that. Okay, so for the lid on this one, I want to use one of the more kind of chunky shades. And I definitely recommend a tacky primer with this shade if you have hooded lids. I'm going to go in with the Moira glitter primer. And I really want just the tiniest bit. And I'm just going to tap that basically all over where I'm going to be putting down the shimmer shadow. And just want to make sure it's a little tacky. And I picked up Maya, and I'm going to pop that right in the center all over that. And then I'm gonna use Emma on the inner corner. There's definitely some fallout with this shade. It does pick up really nicely with this Rephr 21 brush. However, I do have quite a bit of fallout. I would recommend using a finger with these shades because you'll be really able to just kind of press them down, and thus you will also press down the sparkles a little bit more, so that you will also that way avoid a little bit of fallout throughout the day that way. And here's the first finished look. For the second look, I want to do something with the plummy shades and the smoother shades. I'm taking Maria, and that's going to go right onto the outer corner. Just kind of packing it on, really deepen out this outer corner first. And then I'm going to use Dana on the edge of that and just keep blending. I have to say, this matte formula is really nice. Definitely feel a bit of an improvement. Like so far, I have such a great time blending. Really enjoying this formula. I mean, look at that. Like, that was so easy. This is definitely the kind of mattes I like to use on a day-to-day, something that's just like not fussy at all, that I just know I can rely on to do a super quick blend. I picked up Eliza just on my finger, and I'm just gonna swipe that on kind of in the center of my lid, going onto the outer corner. I do think you could get this one a bit more opaque if you use a tacky primer. It's definitely a little bit more on the sheer side kind of shade. And then I'm gonna wipe off my pinky, and I'm picking up Joshua because this is such a cool highlight shade. I think I picked up a little too much. It's kind of flaking off here, but it's very smooth. And look at that highlight. I mean, and I'm gonna use Maria underneath my lower lash line just to connect and finish this look off. And I think I'm gonna bring just a little bit of Joshua down here as well. Just gonna wrap it around the inner corner essentially. And here's the finished look. I've done 4 looks with this palette, and I did a 2-day, almost 12-hour wear test, so I do feel like I have a pretty good idea on all of the shades. Of course, I haven't wear tested all the shimmer shadows, but let's talk about the mattes, because I think these are the best mattes Adept has done. Even compared to their last palette, I think these are just really amped up, and I really enjoy them. They're really easy to use, they're pigmented, they blend together really nicely, they blend together so easily, they don't like blend each other away. I feel feel like this kind of matte formula is definitely what I gravitate towards. So it's not super, super loose. There's a little bit of kick up in the pan, but not really a lot. And I just feel like these lay down and blend out so, so nicely. So I'm really excited to see future palettes with this matte formula because it is very, very nice. I mean, you saw how easily I blended these two looks, and I did try the mattes out on two different eyeshadow primers actually. So for these two looks, I used the Ulta eyeshadow primer, and for the wear test, I used the Too Faced Shadow Insurance Primer, which I set with some loose powder, which I always do that. I do have hooded oily lids. I tend to get a lot of creasing, and when I do that, usually I get minimal creasing no matter what the shimmer shadow is. So I'm going to insert some video in just my bathroom lighting of the first look that I wear tested for almost about 12 hours, maybe like 11 and a half hours. Regardless, that's quite a long time. It is winter here, so I was in really cold weather, but then I was also indoors, and then I was outside, and then I was indoors. So there was changes in the environment, and I think that's a really great way to wear test something. For the first look, as I mentioned, I used the Too Faced Shadow Insurance Primer, and I set it with some loose setting powder, and I used the Shine On Shimmer Shadow Enhancer for the first look because I wasn't using any of the larger particle shadows, and I had no visible creasing or even wearing away of the shadow on my lid. I did definitely have some fallout though, and it was actually more on the left eye, so I think that means that I put on maybe a little bit more product on the left eye, and that's why I had some fallout. As for the second day wear test, I really wanted to see what the more sparkly, more textured shadow would wear like on me. So again, I went in with Too Faced, I set it down, and I used actually the Moira Cosmetics glitter primer. I wanted something a little bit thicker, a little bit like it's going to really just glue it down, and it's gonna be better for something that has a larger particle size. And again, I didn't notice any sort of really noticeable creasing or wearing away of the eyeshadow, which makes me really excited because that was the first time I tried out the glitter primer from Moira Cosmetics, and I definitely do think I prefer the texture so far of it to the NYX glitter primer. And I did experience some fallout throughout the day because, as I mentioned, those really sparkly shadows have the sparkles kind of sitting on top of the pigment. So I was expecting to have some fallout, and I definitely had a lot less fallout than I thought I was going to have. So overall, I'm really happy with both of the wear tests, and I'm really impressed, and I'm really excited to see that none of these shadows are overly sticky or emollient or squishy or anything like that. I really like that there's different textures in here. I like that you have a nice variety of some mid-tone, some more opaque shades, some more topper shades, and also the different textures of really, really sparkly, a little bit maybe drier, a little bit less shiny, and then kind of like super metallic smooth like Sandra, for example, and like an in between. And of course you've got the hollows and the multi-chromes, and so there's a lot of options. There's a lot happening in this palette. I think you could do some really dramatic looks, but you could also do some easy matte in the crease, maybe in the outer corner, and a shimmer on the lid looks with this palette as well. And it is a pretty pricey palette. This palette is going to be $79, which is more expensive than the Natasha Denona palettes. However, those do not have remotely this amount of varying textures and specialty shadows, so you really want to have that to really want to buy this palette. I feel like this is heading into more luxury territory, like indie but make it luxury essentially, because this is definitely really nice packaging. It is magnetic. You can rearrange these. I'm assuming their future palettes are going to have the same setup, and if you have any other Adept palettes, you can of course take those pans and put them in here so you can create your own perfect little palettes that have really nice luxe packaging. So let me know in the comments below what you think of this palette, if you plan on picking it up. And if you enjoyed the video or you found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.